Death on Clare Island, Chapter 5. This wasn't the first time Aunt Georgina made an appointment for me. I'd spent most of my life building a tough external shell to cover my vulnerability, and that meant protecting my independence fiercely. But with Aunt Georgina, it's been different. With so many losses in my life, I have to admit I enjoyed the idea that someone cared about me again. After using the local internet cafe to check my email, I stood on Main Street, gazing lovingly at an appetizing box of Cadbury's roses, chocolates in one of the shop windows. Then someone said, "Do you think it's a good idea, Miss O'Brien, to stare at a box of chocolates?" I knew that voice. I turned and found myself looking into the blue eyes behind his John Lennon style glasses that drew me to him. Lorcan McHale's tall frame looked slim in the khaki pants and navy button-down collar shirt that he wore under a time-worn leather jacket. I worked within myself to regain control, but it wasn't easy. Why did he always seem to materialize at my most embarrassing moments? Like now, when my hair was blown every which way from the sea voyage and my wrinkled t-shirt had escaped from the confines of my capri pants. Even worse, my nose caught the scent of sweat, my sweat. "When are you planning to head back to the US?" he asked as he glanced down at a paper he was holding. His thick blonde hair scraped the top of his shirt collar as if challenging me to touch it. "Leave Ireland? I have no intention of leaving, Mr. McHale. In fact, I have a new case and I'm determined to see it through." There was a long silence as his face grew solemn and his eyes moved from his paper to studying me from over the rim of his glasses. Why did I say that? I wondered. I already knew the answer, however. I planned on returning to the US as soon as I could, and if I did stay, I wasn't going to try solving Matthew Sumner's death for Bridget. But Lorcan had that effect on me. I'm attracted to him, even though we have the kind of relationship where if he said black, I'd say white. Look, Star, I'm worried about your involvement in these cases of yours. How about having dinner with me tonight? You can tell me about it. I know some private investigators who might want to get involved. He folded the paper, which looked to me like a diagram, and placed it into his jacket pocket. Being the son of English aristocracy doesn't mean that you can tell me what to do, I told him. I can take care of myself. And as for dinner, I already have an engagement. I spun on my sand-filled and mud-splattered sneakers, held my head high, and fled away toward the car lot. The 3-mile drive to French Hill calmed my nerves. Yes, I was attracted to Lorcan, but I didn't want to like him. I questioned his motives. Aunt Georgina told me Lorcan and Dylan had been friends once. Lorcan never mentioned Dylan, and Dylan spoke little of Lorcan. When he did, it was with a curious roll of the eyes and a, "that guy's trouble." But as I discovered when Dylan died, he hadn't told me about many things, like French Hill Cottage, which once served as the McHale Estates Lodge. Never mind Lorcan. Why hadn't Dylan told me about French Hill? French Hill sits on Lorcan's 100-acre estate. His mother, Lady Marcella McHale, lives in the family residence with him. With my usual need to figure people out, I'd pictured her passing her days in their 18th century stone house, reading and having tea with her friends. Boy, had I been wrong. I met her for the first time at a dinner she hosted to benefit a local female politician. Aunt Georgina and Lady Marcella were on friendly terms, so when Georgina received the invitation to the dinner, she asked me to go with her. "It'll be a way for you to meet some of the locals," she'd explained. When I was then introduced to the tall, thin, and blonde Lady Marcella, she'd hugged me as if we'd known each other all our lives. "Star," she said, "Georgina has been singing your praises, since she learned you were coming to Ireland. We're so happy you're here. The West of Ireland needs independent women like you. Just when I think I know what someone is like and how they might behave, I learn something that causes me to reassess my initial observation. As I neared the cottage, I drove faster along Cottage Road, a one-lane byroad which runs from the main road to French Hill. Walking from my car onto the cottage grounds, I always feel as if I'm entering a secret garden. Maybe it's the hazelwood and ash trees that form a natural doorway through which I have to pass. Sometimes coming back to the cottage seems as if I'm being transported to an ancient Celtic kingdom. This was one of those times. The air felt cooler now, laced with a burst of rose-scented perfume from the bushes that lay recumbent against the stone wall. Pink, red, and white sweet williams and geraniums fluttered in the breeze, welcoming me home. As I opened the door, I felt sad that I'd eventually be leaving this place. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, bathroom, and living room made for a cozy environment. Maybe it was the feeling of continuity I got from knowing that the antique mahogany, oak, and pine pieces in the bedrooms and living room had belonged to earlier generations of Dylan's family. I sensed a connection to him that made me feel quite at home when alone here at night, safe, secluded, and far from the worries of the world. But it would only be a short time before fate shattered my security.